On the haunted streets of the city of DOSKVOL, scoundrels must fight for every bit of coin, turf, and respect they can get their hands on. If you want to survive, you'll need to face the dangers of rival factions, deadly turf wars, and the bluecoats who patrol the city. Welcome to Critical Success. I'm Adam, and this is why you should play Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark takes place in an industrialized fantasy city known as DOSKVOL or DOSKVOL. DOSKVOL is conveniently located in a post-apocalyptic world inhabited by demons and ghosts which are kept at bay thanks to giant lightning towers that contain the city, powered by a substance called electroplasm. That bit of lore is the developers' effective, albeit convoluted way of telling players and game masters that the game of Blades in the Dark should remain entirely contained within the city of DOSKVOL. I like the fact that this backstory exists and makes life outside the city all but unattainable for players because it removes the option to just skip town and start anew when things inevitably go horribly wrong. During a cataclysm nearly 850 years ago, the sun was shattered, leaving the city of DOSKVOL in a state of eternal shadow. Every inch of the city is covered in man-made structures of some sort, from the stacked residential buildings and storefronts to the canals and alleyways that wind through the industrial maze, providing a convenient way around and enough branching paths to make a stealthy escape possible from almost any situation. It's clear that everything about the lore of DOSKVOL was designed with a duality in mind. Each aspect both fits into the narrative and history of the world, and equally importantly, lends itself to the types of adventures that are meant to be played with the game system. DOSKVOL is the ideal setting for a game of assassinations, heists, and faction wars between the members of the seedy underworld of the city. Blades in the Dark manages to capture a synergy between system and setting that can only be achieved in a game with such a specific and defined area of play, making it, in my opinion, the best game on the market for this style of episodic, criminal-themed gameplay. Players take on the role of scoundrels, daring criminals of the underworld of DOSKVOL. There are 7 different character playbooks to choose from, each one granting the player a different set of stats and abilities. They are the Cutter, a violent and intimidating fighter; the Hound, a keen hunter and tracker; the Leech, an alchemist who makes a point of always having the right tool for the job; the Lurk, a silent thief who exists among the shadows; the Slide, a manipulative social engineer; the Spider, a tactical mastermind; and the Whisper, a proponent of the occult who has learned how to deal and communicate with the ghosts that lurk in the city. Unlike a traditional character creation system, each player receives a unique character sheet based on the playbook they choose for their scoundrel. Your playbook will contain some stats as well as a list of abilities you can learn and methods through which you gain experience. Having the character sheet customized to the type of character you're playing makes the game that much more friendly to newcomers, since they won't need to go digging through the core book each time they gain a new ability. In addition to choosing a playbook for each character, the players will collaboratively choose a playbook for their crew, deciding what type of activity they engage in regularly. There are 6 types of crews to choose from: Assassins, killers for hire who orchestrate disappearances and ransoms; Bravos, mercenaries and thugs who engage in turf battles, extortion, and sabotage; a cult, acolytes of a forgotten god who perform fiendish rituals and hunt ancient artifacts; hawkers, vice dealers who manage covert sales and exercise their force on unreliable customers; shadows, thieves and spies who gather information and execute robberies; and smugglers, contraband transporters who deliver goods and perform expeditions both within and outside of DOSKVOL. The crew, like each character, receives a playbook containing special abilities and a place to track and manage cohorts. The crew also gains experience independently of the individual characters, earning new abilities and gaining cohorts. The crew sheet also keeps track of the group's rep, turf, and heat, 3 important factors that will play a large role in the flow and events of the game. Having the players choose a crew type is just one of the unique elements that helps to create the perfect synergy between the game world and mechanics. Not only does it allow them to accumulate collective resources such as a stash of coin, rep, and even heat, but it acts as a way of informing the Game Master of exactly what type of game the players are expecting to play. A Game Master will know before starting Session 1 what type of activities the crew will be getting up to based on the playbook they chose. Blades in the Dark is the type of game that will likely feature a lot of intrigue between the player's crew and many other factions, and you'll likely have to keep track of a lot of different interests and events simultaneously. So included within the game mechanics is a way to do just that. Clocks are utilized as a way of keeping track of different events and how close they are to coming to pass. Whenever there is a possible outcome to keep track of, the GM draws a clock, which is essentially a circle split up into pieces which then get filled in as actions are accomplished. For example, if the crew were sneaking into an enemy building and were in danger of being overheard or caught by guards, the Game Master might draw a clock with 4 segments labeled Noticed by Guards. And for the entirety of the scene, each time a player takes an action that would make a suspicious amount of noise or rolls poorly when trying to sneak, the Game Master would fill in one piece of the clock, having the guards notice the players once all 4 pieces are filled in. Clocks can be used to track a lot more than that, including everything from projects the characters are working on during their downtime, relationships they are trying to harbor, goals they're trying to meet, and long-term consequences of their actions. The clocks serve a dual purpose in Blades in the Dark as well. Not only do they assist the Game Master in keeping track of the happenings among the game world, but they create an amount of transparency between the players and the GM. Players know that it's going to take them 6 segments of a clock to earn the respect of a nearby gang that they want to have a relationship with. They can see the segments fill in as they roll well and perform jobs that go in the favor of this nearby gang. It makes the goal feel real and attainable, and like it is a direct result of their actions. In my initial read-through of Blades in the Dark, this mechanic really stood out to me. It's incredibly simple and can be carried over to any other game you play, but feels particularly at home in this exact style of game. Blades in the Dark uses a dice pool system, but unlike most dice pool systems, the sum of the dice values are not added together. Rather, the value of the single highest die is used to calculate success. A 1, 2, or 3 counts as a failure. The player will receive a complication for failing the task. A 4 or 5 counts as a success but with some type of added complication. A 6 counts as a complete success. The player accomplishes what they're trying to do with no consequence. And if 2 or more dice land on 6s, then that counts as a critical success. Looking at the probabilities associated with the dice system, it's clear what type of result it's meant to promote. Most of the rolls made by players will result in a value of 4 or 5, meaning that scoundrels will often be accomplishing their goals and driving the story forward, but will also be constantly facing consequences. This helps to reinforce both the expertise of the scoundrels and the dangers of the city, and is another example of how the system works with the type of stories that the game tells. Each action that the players take is also given a position and effect, essentially a measure of how dire the consequences and effective the actions will be. This, similar to the clocks, adds a layer of transparency. Before players actually roll for anything, they'll know how much effect the action will have and how severe the consequences can be, allowing them to weigh the risk before deciding to do anything. Time spent playing the game is split up among 3 main activities: exploration, scores, and downtime. Exploration is the time that players spend discovering the city and looking for their next score. Once the crew has decided on a score they wish to take on, the GM cuts directly to the action, putting the players at the location of the score about to begin. Preparation for the score is intentionally skipped to keep the pacing of the game quick and prevent the crew from spending hours planning out every possible thing that could happen, only to find out that most of those situations aren't going to happen anyway. Once the score begins, players can have flashbacks in exchange for stress, a type of damage that puts scoundrels a little bit closer to becoming traumatized and needing to retire from their life of crime. This creates a sort of act now, plan later mentality in the crew, which helps to make the game feel very narrative and episodic. They don't have to know every detail of what their character did and planned in preparation for the score, because they will find out during the action, along with everyone else. Flashbacks are a great way of controlling the pace of the session by removing unnecessary planning, and could really only work in a game that is highly episodic and mission-based like Blades in the Dark. Another example that perfectly captures the synergy between game and system. Overall, Blades in the Dark is a fantastically fun and narrative system that implements unique philosophies which set it apart from any other role-playing game. If you think you can survive on the deadly streets of DOSKVOL, making a name for your crew and earning your way to the top of the underworld, you can follow the link in the description and learn more or purchase your copy of Blades in the Dark. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what other games you'd like me to talk about, or just share your favorite stories from your adventures in Blades in the Dark. Thank you so much for watching. Now go play.